Hey, what's going on, everybody? Yes, this is Collective Summaries. It's been a long time since I've come into making kind of video, but I started watching this on the side and I figured I would do a quick watch, maybe like reaction to a reaction. So here's my little preface here about some of the material, and then we'll jump right into it because I don't really like to delay too much. But so far, I have watched this video on why we should take in carbs, how this is insulin signaling for the, just for keeping electrolytes in the kidneys and other functions in the organs of the body. Just insulin in general is probably a great thing if it's used correctly. Now, first of all, you guys got to know I am not a top tier scientist or anything like that. So if you see me going off the gate and saying, wow, that's amazing, there's something striking like this clown's doing, listen, here's the thing. I don't want to talk junk about Bart K anyways. He doesn't rub me the right way, but I don't want to shoot him down because we're not here for that. We're here to listen and look at things objectively. And the cool part is like whenever I was making a lot of the earlier video content, I was taking a lot of these people from different camps and combining them. And Bart K, what he's done is he's kind of cross-examined one of the words he's used in some of his videos against some of these guys, like I think it's Dr. Carvalho or whatever. He's a real big, I would say, adverse opponent to some of the other doctors that I had reviewed. And when I was talking about seed oils and things like that, there was much more content that needed to be re-examined or cross-examined that they presented. So I really took a back seat. I presented what I presented. I thought it was pretty decent. But, if you look for stats and you look at really what the literature is saying, a lot of times you can get away with consuming these seed oils. I hate to say it, guys. I don't want to give them any kind of credit. But I look at brass tacks. I look at net results. And if the body can take care of it or do well with it, fine. I don't think it's necessarily a generational thing. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I have to review a little bit more on those particular people that are against seed oils to know better. But I was watching Bart K as he's giving his commentary on what Dr. Paul Saladino is presenting. And here's what makes Bart rub me the wrong way. He stands up here like some alpha, egotistical brat. Like, let's come on, man, come off the fucking. I know it fucking does. Like, fuck off with that bullshit. He looks more retarded, looking like a fucking turd, talking shit about somebody else, trying to position himself as some kind of authoritative figure when he's mentioning all of the language he knows. Obviously, knows well. I would say he knows this fairly well because he's constantly making video content on the subject matter, and you're going to get versed in the language. It just happens. It was the same for me when I was doing it. So I just don't appreciate his way of knocking and he's using his own slander and bullshit phrasing against Paul Saladino when he's saying striking. You'll see in the video, he's always talking about he's saying striking. That's not scientific. Yes, and when we're dealing with these rhetorical phrasings that people use, and it really just detracts from the content. I agree. I do definitely agree with Dr. K here, but I also see that he's also embellishing his fucking commentary in talking trash about Dr. Saladino. So it doesn't help his argument. He looks like a shithead. I'm sorry to say it, but I have to come correct. And yes, I'm getting off a little bit with my opinions. So one thing that he said, and I found very interesting, and this is Dr. K, it was when he was talking about the Randall cycle and how you can avoid going into the Randall cycle whenever you're utilizing glucose over fats. Like, I guess you don't combine those two and you don't have the Randall cycle issue, which is what he was attributing to why these folks lost weight. So depending on like calorie restriction or what have you, I have not reviewed this Walter Kempner's study. I think it seems very unique. And when I say like that, it's like, okay, we have this content, but is there so many follow-up studies after this? Like, that's something I'm curious about. I don't know why Kay hasn't brought it up. Maybe he will. But I didn't really. It always seemed like it was just this isolated study. Now, side note, I have been consuming more fruit lately, just because I feel like I've been running into issues with what I like. If I consume too much saturated, and some of the things that I added with my saturated fats, like with my meat consumption, I feel like threw a lot of things off with me. He said there's like an excess rise in copper whenever you consume a liver. Hey, I don't know. I don't consume a lot of liver, but I have noticed like I have sometimes issues when I take liver supplements. And if you're taking something like an electrolyte that has copper in it, you probably doubling up and it's not helping with the liver if this is what Dr. K is saying is correct. So it's something for me to look into, but otherwise I really don't think I have that too much of an issue. But the fruit, I can say it has not been impeding my issues. I like what he said. Here's what Dr. K said too earlier in this video, and I'm just echoing what I've reviewed already, and then we'll get into it. But I like how he mentioned that when you shock the body between two different types of dieting, basically, or lifestyles, you don't give it enough time to acclimate or adapt, then you're going to run into these weird issues. And he said like it brings down the body or something to that effect. I can't disagree with him. It's like when you're introducing like a different type of fuel or method of way of introducing a fuel, the body is trying to figure out and sort how it's going to run with this the next days, that day and the days to come. So when I started back on fruit, it was a little rocky, but I've also discovered that eating your hydrated fruit is a lot different from eating dehydrated, which is what I was wrong on. I used to throw back a lot of mango. So dried mango. But if you eat a lot of dried mango, I would hope you try to get a lot more water. But then it also changes the fiber, the density of the fiber content. So there's a lot there that I was way off with when it comes to eating different types of fruit. I've been doing the hydrated version. It feels better. This is my second day. Ate a lot of grapes in the morning. I ate a Bojangles biscuit after that. And this idea is that I'm basically, because I want to gain fat, believe it or not, I'm trying to do this. So, and the reason why is I just lack nutrients. I lack this fuel. I want to have the backup fuel, and I want my body to be able to understand store fat. It doesn't know how to store fat. It's like, that's my issue. Other people may not have that. So I had like a Bojangles biscuit. It sustained me for energy. I didn't have any kind of back problems, no celiac issues popping up, none of that crap. And let's fast forward. I worked the entire day moving stuff earlier in the day, boxes. I'm talking about heavy ass shit. Went and did other things, drove, all this shit. And I came home after all that to eat watermelon. Waited 30 minutes because I don't really like how it combines with regular fruit. Ate two tangerines. I feel great. I'm still functioning, high functioning with just this fruit. And then I'll eat a big meal afterwards. That's my game plan. But I wanted to stop this. I wanted to stop what I was watching with Bart K because it deserved a cross-examination of his silliness. I don't want to say he's that silliness, but his way of speaking in his video towards Dr. Saladino. I mean, for me, it's unnecessary. But I'm going to see what you guys think, and I'm going to bring up some points that I've noticed between the two. And I think what we're basically getting down to, and when I looked up Randall cycle to understand it a little bit better, it seems like the Randall cycle is a switch between utilizing fats for energy and utilizing sugar for energy. And if it uses the fat, whenever you start to consume more fat content, the body will switch over to using it up more, the fat, and turn off the insulin signaling to uptake the glucose and use it into the muscle or deposit it or whatever. So it depends on what type of fuel you're consuming and how much of it and how it's going to affect the Randall cycle. Not that you can avoid the Randall cycle. The Randall cycle is a toggle switch. It seems like it's a toggle switch for deciding which type of fuel it's going to use. And based on that type of fuel will activate the insulin or not. It's fuel preferential and systems activate or deactivate or not being active. Again, protein does that little weird, thing where it does have a delay. and coming back and using the sugars, because you can't really eat all the sugars. And it's one of the things he put on here was you got to eat 1.7 grams of protein per kilo of body weight, of lean body weight. And I'm over here like, what the like, who is sitting down to consume that much protein? And he says in one meal. Now, I understand what he's saying there, because when the body sits down and consumes that much protein in one meal, it can't possibly take all of the fucking protein. That's what people fail to realize. They think their body is really utilizing all of the amino acid profile. But no, it's only got a certain percentage. I don't know what that is for everybody. But a lot of people have ruled it out to be around 24 fucking grams at a time, or 22. And so when that cutoff mark hits, whatever is excess, the body has to dump it somewhere. At least ways from what I've learned. And you get uric acid buildups. You get all kinds of little factors. Maybe it's not as bad for other people. Maybe it doesn't necessarily happen this way. But I do know the body does convert protein into sugar. A lot of times this is where a lot of those occurrences were happening. And so if that's the case, you'll get your insulin signaling like Dr. K is saying. I'm not disputing any of that. What I question is how much are we really, what are we benefiting from in having this one meal a day? Like, how is it just the insulin signaling? And if that's the case, then I have to go back to Paul Saladino, who is echoing you can get better, quicker signaling with just consuming fruits as maybe part of your meal or throughout the day. And so if it's getting the signaling, the insulin's going in and it's doing its job and activating different parts in the body, insulin's important, great. You don't have to wait for this whole delay out. And especially when it's like a whole day. And transitioning into that is probably not an easy thing. So what this guy over here, Dr. K of all wise, is trying to, consider or trying to promote and to get there is like, it could be very difficult for a lot of people. You think about it. Some people don't make it one whole day to eat just one meal, and just to transition to that, it can be even troublesome. Some people might give up during that process. So I don't want to make it like it's such a great thing for everybody to do, or that is actually adaptable for every body type. Just like there is no insulin resistance measurement that he's alluding to, which I haven't seen anything either. I don't see any kind of insulin resistance test or insulin sensitivity test. I think he's right on the money with that. So let's jump back in here and see what else he's going to be talking about.
Every individual case of every person in the world, it would seem that there are some pretty obvious mechanistic routes by which it would probably tend to affect the likelihood in every given person. But you're still not actually making any point here, Paul, and you're not supporting the claim that you're making in the title of your video, which is why we need carbohydrates, because we still don't. Not one single gram ever.
That's my point in saying this. So where are we left? I hope that we're left with the appreciation for the fact that having carbohydrates in your diet has value.
No, Paul, that's your opinion.
And that we should not fear these blood glucose spikes.
Again, and I don't know if I'm going to have to redo this whole thing or add this to the other part of the videos that I've been making, but again, we're looking at the benefit of this sugar and rice according to the Walter Kempner study. If anything, we need to figure out what we're doing with that study. If Bart K has already debunked the hell out of it and it's got really valuable information, now's the time for him to start speaking about why that is not such a great study. Otherwise, he just started throwing up all of his little stupid rhetoric shit around it, saying about it as being from the vegan camp. Like, he's poo-pooing. He's doing the same rah-rah poo-poo in a different way. This looks ridiculous. But I'm wanting to hear what the fuck he's going to present about that. Like, it doesn't matter who's right or wrong here. I'm sourcing the information. That's the whole point of me having this channel. And I'm waiting on him to give me why this Kempner study sucks, or what the follow-up testimonies have been like, or any of the study or any of the research done. I just want to know. Tell me, Kay, you're such an expert on everything. Tell me about that one. Fucking AI. He's not AI. He can't research it out and give it to you that quickly. But we'll listen. Let's see what he's got.
Blood glucose spiking is absolutely, without any question, a bad thing, Paul, if for no other reason, because of the propensity for such spikes to cause damage to your tissues. The very thing that we've spoken about previously that you got completely wrong, by the way, where you suggested that the HbA1c test is sensitive to damage of tissues related to fructose, which I've absolutely shown you were completely wrong.
Okay. He's doing exactly the same shit that Saladino is doing. But Saladino gets to his points and brings up his statistics. He brings up his studies. He brings up whatever his data is. And maybe it ain't the best, but at least he's got something. Kay over here tells you just out of his mouth what the fucking facts are, what they're not the facts are. That blood sugar, that whenever you consume this glucose, and we try to examine it as blood, like glucose from fruit is going to be the same as eating table sugar or processed sugar. This is why I liked what Saladino presented, because he gave all of this extra research to kind of push back on the epithelial damage that happens in these blood vessels and blood cells. Like, he hasn't watched enough to get to that point, so I'm curious to see what he's going to present. Like, what is the adverse or opposite effect and challenge to what the hell Saladino's presenting? Where's your information? You're just spitting out shit that we don't have anything to back up on. You might as well be me at this point.
On, it's not, and it will not see that damage. Fructose, as it turns out, for everybody that's interested, is 7 to 11 times more damaging to tissues at high concentration than is glucose. Interesting, isn't it? So, yeah, the issue, never mind insulin, Paul. The issue with...
You guys are going to see here really soon how he's going to present the other studies. I hope he brings it up in his little his examination, cross-examination, because he brings up the studies to show how it does not do 7 to 11 times more tissue damage. No. Do you know there's so many people that actually heal up on a fruit diet, or they do juices and they heal up on these diets? If everything this crack here was showing, I'm saying my shit because I can't stand idiots that sit up here like, physician says that. Where's your stats? You put what, some words up on the screen, and we all supposed to believe that? Health science. I'm Dr. K, and I have all of your vital information today. All I have to do is put in big bold print these words, and you all believe me. Dr. K. Come on. You're no different from the other people we're trying to wake up from. You're the same type of crowd. And here's the funny thing. You've at least got Saladino. If he gets that point, I want to see who he says. He's got to give me something more than this.
With exogenous carbohydrate in large amounts is it will damage your tissues.
There he goes with his little cute face.
Rapidly, apparently. In just a few short years. Wow.
Nor should we fear the insulin that comes along with them.
Fear insulin? Who fears insulin? I don't.
Now, I know there will be who are thinking, I'm obese.
He said, who fears insulin? You dumb fuck. Anybody who has diabetes, a lot of people that have diabetes. I'm just speaking for a lot of the people that I've spoken to that have diabetes. They worry about their insulin. Fucking idiot. Who worries about insulin? I don't. This is a fucking douchebag. Guys, if you're watching him, I'm watching him because I'm hoping to still extract some objective information. That's the only reason why I look at this stuff. Normally, I would never even watch Dr. K's crap. Because he just sits there and just like he's a pedestal positioning fucktard, man. He just gets there and he tries to keep himself looking in the glow of knowledge and expertise. And yet, doesn't give a whole lot to back himself up. There's a separate video. he was trying to talk smack about this other vegan, or I think it was Plant Chompers. Aha, remember, God, it's been a while ago. He tried to give all kinds of crap, talk shit about him. He don't fuck with Plant Chompers. Let me tell you something. That guy is on for some other type of stuff. And so whenever Plant Chompers came back and, you know, had his rebuttal, he made sure to flatten Dr. K. It sounded like a moron. And he's still continuing to do it because he's got viewers and he's getting paid to sound like an idiot and people gobble it up. And he's got me watching him and making another freaking reaction video on his reaction video. This is unbelievable. Let's go on.
Obese, is this okay for me? I'm diabetic. I'm pre-diabetic. I have a family history of diabetes.
See?
What should I do?
That's why people are worried about
certainly,
insulin.
if you are metabolically healthy.
How would a person know that, Paul? Joe blogs, Josephine blogs. How would they know?
Including carbohydrates in your diet will improve your
Will? Too strong.
performance, your sleep, your mood.
All subjective things. All things that there are perfectly valid answers to by way of, well, I don't find that. I find the exact opposite, in fact.
Because you gotta wait 6 to 8 weeks, you ding dong. See, he doesn't know that he's talking shit against himself right now. He just mentioned earlier in the video, you gotta take about 6 to 8 weeks to adjust to a change in your kind of diet or consumption of fuel types. Whatever he's talking about in that process, he's got to then reattribute that to himself if he's gonna say, I don't know, Paul, if I take it, I feel like shit. If I take more glucose, I feel like shit if I do it right then. Of course you're going to do that because you don't go through your 6 to 8 weeks of freaking adjusting. Clown. This is what I mean by tracking what the fuck people say. Sorry if I get off a little bit emotional, but I don't like when people take advantage of their own idiocy. It's like...
And some pseudo anecdotes. Paul, you haven't provided us with anything remotely akin to science. And your video is entitled Why We Need Carbohydrates in Our Diet, which surely should be a scientifically
just getting
based
paid to be
posit,
this asshole,
shouldn't it?
that's all.
We are still 2/3 of the way through your video and you've produced not one single thing.
Your libido and your muscle, I would say, maintenance and muscle gains. Undoubtedly, in my opinion.
Well, your opinion is worthless, Paul. This is a scientific discussion.
And I believe that for those of you who are pre-diabetic, obese, looking to lose weight, having some carbohydrates in your diet is also valuable.
Well, I would disagree entirely, Paul. See, that's how it is with opinions.
But that you should scale those carbohydrates based on your activity levels.
Well, how is a person Josephine or Joe blogs off the street going to do that, Paul? By what methodology are they going to achieve this quite complex measurement, which would be required first so that we can actually then set a level for that person? And then how are we going to get them to follow it accurately? Hello, have you been to reality at all, Paul?
I think a lot gets made of the fact that I've publicly said that I'm eating 200 to 300 grams of carbohydrates a day.
And it's actually probably more like 400, Paul, I would suggest.
Did you hear what you just said there? It's actually more like 400, Paul, if I would suggest. He's inserting his own bullshit. He's still doing it. He clearly, Paul just said 200 to 300 grams. He added another 100 of pure volition, and he did it earlier in the video. He's asserting his fucking stuff as fact when he's still giving opinion. I'm sorry, like how can we hold this person's authority on anything else when he's busy contradicting himself in all manners of activity or conveyance of this information? It's a joke, but we're going to keep on.
And then people don't always frame that in the proper way, that I am also surfing 2 to 3 hours a day and skating and lifting weights or swimming in a river.
But that doesn't alleviate the problems that your tissues will undergo by way of the damage that the exogenous sugars are doing to those tissues, Paul.
Where's your studies, you smoking cock-face dude? What does that mean?
Pretty active for a human. I would say I exercise every single day because I like to exercise, not because I'm feeling there's an imperative to do that. So the amount of carbohydrates I eat as a metabolically healthy fairly muscular 46-year-old man
Who says you're metabolically healthy, Paul?
may not be the right amount of carbohydrates for you. But I think that for most of you, having some carbohydrates in your diet will be of significant benefit. How much should...
Well, but that's your opinion, Paul. And your opinion on this topic is worthless. You are qualified as an allopathic medic and a psychiatrist. Two professions, I believe, neither one of which you've ever actually practiced. Am I right, Paul? Perhaps you should, because that's what you're trained in. You're not trained in science or being competent in science. We've seen that already. I mean, just go and have a look at the video recently where Paul said that A1C test is sensitive and will pick up damage to his tissues done by fructose, which it won't. Paul has no credibility to talk about science in general or nutrition science as a field of that science in general. No credibility at all.
should you have in your diet? I think that the lower end for humans is probably around 100 grams of carbohydrates a day.
Ridiculous. The exact dietary requirement for carbohydrates for human beings, Paul, is still not 1 single gram ever. 0.
I do not think that you as a human should go below 100 grams of carbohydrates. That's every...
Well, I completely disagree with you, Paul. And one of us has some credence in this field and in science in general. And one of us is you, Paul. So people can make their own decision about which one of us is credible, I think.
Everyone. If you're obese, if you're pre-diabetic, if you're diabetic, having 100 grams of carbohydrates in your diet a day, I think is the bottom end.
Well, that is dangerous, contraindicated, ridiculous advice from an individual completely out of his field. Sorry, that's what it is.
And as I've shared in the past, I won't share the study now, but I've done many times, there are studies in diabetics given 125 to more than 125 grams of honey per day who improved their insulin sensitivity based.
Still a construct. And what else was done in that study, Paul? There's no point even discussing this if you're not actually going to bring the study up on the screen so we know which one it is, so that we can go and look at the thing. And for you to spend a few minutes at least analysing the flaws, foibles, methodological errors involved in this thing that invalidate this thing, because there are many. We've dealt with that before in the past, though, boys and girls, if you want to go and find it.
Based on fasting glucose metrics and other metrics of insulin sensitivity. So again, there are healthy ways to eat carbohydrates. And I think...
No, there aren't really, Paul, because any elevation in your blood glucose over the homeostatic set point for...
If you guys haven't noticed, he's not making any kind of, he's not gotten to any of the relevant information and studies that he has put up on the screen. It's interesting that he picked this portion out to ridicule him, to make himself maybe look better, or he just didn't spend time to review everything that Saladino presented. It's very weird to watch this. So I really don't know. It's confusing for me.
Period of time will subject your tissues to damage by virtue of the high concentration of sugars in your blood, which is toxic. The sugars bind chemically to your tissues and chemically alter them, damaging them, ripping down their function, making one appear to age rapidly, Paul. Appear that...
Again, you can look at other people that consume sugars, consume fruit, have done so maybe for 20 plus years. There are some that are, let's just use raw food diet. Maybe they don't have as much glucose in their diet, but I've known a lot of people that still consume a lot of sugars in those diets. When you remove the processed foods, a lot of times that's what helps people. So I've heard from Fred Bishi, Dr. Fred Bishi, who's 93 years old, raw food diet, 50-some years on this. And he said it like this: it's not really so much of what you're consuming. It's more about what you're leaving out. And I've been trying to adopt that quote into my regimen so much because I'm discovering it's having a play. If I introduce some things, I pocket some of that activity for just that. I'm like, okay, I'm eating some crap. Let's really compartmentalize the bad food eating session. and then I leave it alone, I probably won't eat anything. Like I'll save the bad food actually for more of the evening time. So, and when I do it, it's probably going to be here in about an hour. But I'll consume all of that bad food, wrap that all up, be done for the next. I think it's like I'll probably eat and stop around 6:30. It would be preferable because once I'm done, I will allow the body to then allocate and do the shit that it needs to do, flush it out, whatever. And I do take a great probiotic. I take supplements. That's just where I'm at in my life. Eventually, I'd love to not be able to take them. But what I'm trying to say is for this guy to talk about this aging process with sugar and glycation. Here's the effed up thing. None of these gurus that are sugar gurus, especially somebody like Robert Lustig, any of these other cats, and Saladino called them out, even the goddess, the sugar goddess or whatever, none of them will have a healthy debate with him. And I bet you Kay won't either. He's like, I'm not going to entertain this time with him. I'm not going to entertain a moment of his time. This would give me a headache trying to talk with an idiot that doesn't work in the field of what I work in and have expertise. Like, oh my God, he's such a... Oh, guys, he makes me want to throw up the way he just sits here like he's some god king. Nobody. He's no different from any of you guys. He researches information, learns it well, and regurgitates. He's no different from any one of you guys. You as a consumer can do the exact same thing. You can apply discipline under your belt and get even better. You can hold yourself accountable for what you're doing with your data retrieval and data expression. You can get just as good or better than Dr. K because he ain't presenting any freaking data. He's not showing us his rebuttal or his cross-examination information. Like what would you do if you were really in a debate? Like you would not be able to present anything that of your counter argument? Like, I don't know. But he's doing it right here. Guys, he's doing the exact same thing right here.
That way because that's what's happening. Their tissues are being vastly damaged at a rate of knots. As clearly as I was going to say their cognitive decline would seem obvious, but actually Paul's cognitive decline seemed to be stepwise, and one step from sensible 100% carnivore to we need lots of organs. Whoops, there's a step down. We don't still. To let's put 400 probably grams of carbohydrates down our stupid neck every day. There's a step down, and here's another step down. Let's tell everybody else they should do that too. At least 100. You are done, Paul. You are finished here. Your credibility is in the absolute shit can. I cannot believe anybody still watches this buffoon.
Same
What's
for
wrong
you.
with you people?
It sucks,
Another
What are they?
point that I want to make in this podcast is that we must not conflate research done on pure fructose, on processed sugars, especially high fructose corn syrup, with whole food sources of carbohydrates like fruit.
Oh, the magic whole food matrix. Oh, here's the matrix. Oh, here's the matrix.
What's that?
The whole food matrix that somehow makes this okay. Wow.
Or like...
Oh my God. The whole food matrix that makes it seem okay. And we're waiting for you to counter it, Dr. K. He's not going to present Saladino's information about how these different juices and sugars react in the body and what they've studied and produced. He puts up the studies on his videos, y'all. Like the fact that Dr. K does not entertain that content shows him being very selective. This dude is suspect. Super, super suspect. If he's going to sit there and ridicule this individual and blackball him basically in the health food industry, for what? This is not a healthy discussion. It basically incites some emotional responses like the one I'm giving, and I still haven't heard anything that can be helpful. I waited this whole video, actually watched it thinking I would get something. I learned about the Randall cycle, but even he didn't explain that well. He acted like it was something that it comes about or it doesn't come about. Like the Randall cycle is always at play when it's consumed, when the food's being consumed. He didn't even explain it out well. And here I am, just a layperson. Can you imagine if I was really more higher up in the expertise field of this subject matter, and I could examine what Dr. Bart K is showing? I want to call him Clay. Actually, searched him out to find like his video. I was like Bart Clay, and all I found was like Bart Simpson. Yeah, he's wearing yellow, so just lacking the hair like me. Actually, mine's coming back. Ha! Is it the fruit? Is it the fruit? I don't know. Let's go on.
Like honey.
That's it?
No, that's
Wow.
not it.
So, Paul's video entitled Why You Need Carbohydrates in Your Diet gave us exactly how many reasons that we need
I'll
carbohydrates
post you
in
the
our
video
diet
that
at all.
he's talked about juice
Yes.
and fruit.
Correct. Not one. 0. No reasons. Still wrong, Paul. Still incompetent. Still out of your lane and out of your depth, son. See you next time, everybody, when someone else will be wrong on interwebs, because it doesn't look like slowing down anytime soon, does it? Ciao for now.
Lord. What a joke. What a joke. Okay, so in defense of Dr. K's video of what he examined on why we need carbs, I'm going to say that in that segment of a video, like, it was not helpful what Saladino presented, in the essence that he did not really give any kind of study information. And he's done this in a lot of other videos too. Now, but here's the funny thing. You can keep looking at more of his content on the subject matter, and he will produce study information, because he's not like a guy that doesn't research or get into this and become not well versed. He tries to source it out. And if he's wrong, he puts the challenge in front of people to basically say, prove me wrong. I want to be proven wrong here. Help me to understand. He's not busy going, I got all the answers and the opinions are facts. He's just basically saying, here's what I've found out. Here's what I've discovered. And if you guys find anything else different, please let me know. You know, like he's basically trying to be as objective as he can with the subject matter and leaving himself out there for basically ridicule. So here's some of the other the videos that I watched when he was talking with Dr. Anthony Chaffee, who is a primarily carnivore-based doctor. And I like Dr. Anthony Chaffee, even though I don't necessarily agree with everything there, but I like him. Some of the things I argue with is this fact that, oh, well, our ancestors say it this way. Here's what I challenge people. I say this to people when they bring these arguments up. I say, okay, our ancestors ate meat, or the people that eat meat, what was their lifespans like? Nobody talks about that. And I'm like, and what is modern man and the humans dealing with right now? How are they out in the sun? How are they doing any of the same activities that our ancestors did? If anything, we're evolving, which I call it the adaptation. We're adapting into something that's not favorable. This is why I don't like that word evolve. Evolve has got like a bad connotation that we're achieving greater things. We're developing into a higher state. Like, you think about evolution, we evolve from this like primate situation to this higher thinking that proposes some intellectual leap. But people talk about evolution as de-evolving. And that's why I say, fuck the word evolution. This is a dumbass term these guys created back in the day. This is just an opinion rant. But then you've got adaptation that's happening. And that's what I believe is happening in the grand scale of things. So we're adapting with this current lifestyle of being indoors, never getting any sunshine, all these factors. And we're trying to understand how meat factors into that equation now. That's what we're working with. The current narrative. We're not on the past. So when these guys bring up that kind of stuff like Anthony Chaffee does, that's the only things that I really raise eyebrows with. Any of these guys that talk that way. But here's the information that I brought up in, I think, a past video that I made with some AI. But I put some right here. I want to present it here where he starts bringing up the actual study information. So somebody says, where's your stuff? Here it is. So enjoy.
There's an interesting amount of research on fruit and even fruit juice in humans. They appear to be unequivocally beneficial. I know that even the likes of Robert Lustig have argued that fruit may not be bad for humans because it contains fiber, and that may mitigate some of the absorption of fructose. But when I go further, and I just released a couple of weeks ago a podcast on fruit juice, and so I looked at all the research I could find on fruit juice, watermelon juice, pomegranate juice, cherry juice, grape juice, orange juice. All of these have minuscule amounts of fiber, and they seem to be pretty beneficial for humans with outcomes that show decreased oxidized LDL in vitro, which is really the only way to study oxidation of LDL, improved endothelial function, decreased products of oxidation in humans, decreased inflammatory markers, certain prostaglandins. The list kind of goes on and on.
I'm trying to figure out where's the tissue damage. What he presented there is the contrast to the tissue damage argument that Dr. K was talking about.
I was kind of wide-eyed, thinking like, okay, even fruit juice looks to be beneficial to humans in so many ways, and I'm happy to share the studies. I think we can put the studies on the screen and the YouTube corroborating all of that. I mean, I'll say this, and then I'll be curious for your response. Watermelon juice is so interesting to me specifically because there are multiple studies in which they give people glucose. So they'll do an oral glucose tolerance test, an OGTT, and they'll infuse glucose and make people hyperglycemic, essentially with a quote unquote processed sugar. And you see micro and macrovascular dysfunction of the endothelium when you do that. But when you give people watermelon juice along with an OGTT, it attenuates all of the negative effects of the OGTT.
What was he talking trash about earlier, Dr. K? He was saying the Whole Foods, it changes everything. There's your study that is backing up exactly what he was talking about with Whole Foods actually being something different. And this is what this is what Dr. Saladino is saying right here. It attenuates hyperglycemia. I mean, that's tremendous. Like, we're talking about super supplying somebody with a lot of sugar, and we then just give them watermelon juice, which is like pure sugar again, you would think, right? No, there's something chemically going on in that substrate that affects how the body's going to process sugar. Plus, most of the sugar, the arguments that I think Saladino brings up, and I've been watching a lot of the studies, I haven't seen anything different, where they talk about how sugar behaves in the bodies of people. They've usually been studies that have been done on rodents. And one thing Paul Saladino brings up is how the way rodents process this sugar information is different from humans. Well, I would imagine so. They don't have the same, I mean, they're close in a lot of ways. That's why we study rodents, their physiology. But it's not the exact same, of course. They're not speaking and talking English. Do you see them doing that? Kind of mental faculty energy has to be used up for that to work. So a lot of the backup for what this glucose argument is, for how it is damaging or doing stuff like that, happens in the rodent models. I think he's going to bring it up in this video, but we'll see.
At the level of the endothelium. So it's really interesting that, I think you could even make an argument that fruit juice is even like an antidote to processed sugar. I don't think processed sugar is good for humans, but I wonder, do you think it's possible that we are conflating research with processed sugar and high fructose corn syrup with fruit, and saying that fruit or fruit juice is bad for humans based on research done with processed sugars, which don't really behave the same way in the human body? Or do you think I'm off base with that premise?
No. I think that I'm sort of somewhere in the middle. I do agree with you that is certainly different than processed sugar and straight sugar on its own, 100%. And
hey, coming straight from the carnivore doctor. So I'm not going to go in further with this. Even Dr. Anthony Chaffee tries to be objective in some of his content, and I love it. This is why I still watch his content. May not agree with it all, but I still like his content. Guys, we're not perfect. We're humans. We're trying to source the information and get better at what we're doing. And after that, maybe derive an answer. I'm not sure. But if you like the videos, if you like everything and me ranting and getting frustrated, please give a like and subscribe. I really don't encourage this that often much. But yeah, please jump on board so I can keep pumping out information like this. It gives me momentum. And if you have anything you want to discuss, you got something you want to put down in the comments lines, go for it. If you got videos you want me to review that doesn't even involve health, that's fine. I just happen to really like this field. It's exciting. It's interesting. It helps me get better with my own metabolic issues. And this is how I get better. I mean, I wouldn't have the vitality I think I would have right now, especially the load of work I did earlier today, if I wasn't able to stay on the subject matter and learn, and just get better and better and better. So guys, tell me what you think, and I'll see you on the next video. Cheers.